When I was in second grade, the teacher sent a note home that she wanted to meet with my parents. And this was a little shaky because I wasn't always excited about that. My parents came, and they met with the teacher, and they were talking about my academics and not my behavior, which was a good thing. The teacher was concerned because she thought that I couldn't see very well. And even though she put me up in the front of the class, she didn't think that I could see the blackboard. So my parents said, okay, and they decided to have my eyes tested. And so I went to the eye doctor, and of course, my eyesight was bad, and they prescribed glasses, and I wore the glasses, but I was kind of like that boy, that little boy who we hear about, who wore his glasses for two reasons. It kept the girls from kissing him and the boys from hitting him. Well, I only worked on one of those levels. It kept the girls from kissing me, but it didn't keep the boys from hitting me because I lost a lot of glasses through the years. I was very, very nearsighted. I could not see anything, and I had to make sure to put my glasses in one spot because I could never find them again if I put them someplace different. So some years ago, I thought, well, I've got to have some help for my nearsightedness. And so I considered contact lenses. And they were hard contact lenses, and they were expensive, and they were hard to deal with, and so I didn't do that. And then I saw an article in the paper about a surgery that they removed the cornea from your eyes, froze it, and shaved it down, and put it back, and your eyesight was improved. And I thought this was a little bit extreme and invasive, so I didn't do that. But along came another operation called radiokeratotomy. And with that, with a computer, they put just a little slit in your cornea, and it corrects your eyesight. I decided to do that one, and so I went to the doctor. He said I had the most nearsighted eyes he'd ever worked with, which didn't instill a lot of confidence, but I went through it, and I can remember, even to this day, they give you this medicine, I don't know what it was, but I really felt good. Nothing bothered me. And I was higher than a kite. I couldn't do anything. And they had to have me awake to do the surgery. And so I could see each slit that they made in the cornea improve my eyesight. And it was fabulous. And that lasted for 10, 15 years. It corrected it without glasses for 10, 15 years. Now, I'm not nearsighted anymore, but I'm farsighted. And so I need glasses for reading and for seeing at middle distances and all that. But it's important how we see, and how we see is very important to us. Now, if you consider the man that Jesus was dealing with, he had been blind from birth. Jesus runs across him. His disciples say, who sinned, this man or his parents? Because they believed that any affliction was the consequence of sin. And Jesus says, no, you don't get it. Nobody sinned. This man was just blind from birth. And so after the discussion, Jesus spit on the ground and made a little healing thing out of the mud, put the mud on this man's eye, and he said, go and wash in the pool of Siloam. And the man did, and he regained his eyesight. He came back, and the neighbors were excited. Here is a man that was blind all of his life and can now see. So they take him to the Pharisees. Now, the Pharisees are the gatekeepers of the community. Because he had been a blind beggar, he really needed to talk with them to get back into the mainstream of the community. Well, they weren't happy because Jesus did this on the Sabbath day. They considered it work to spit on the ground and to make this little mud poultice and put it on his eyes. And so they said to the man, who was this guy? Who was this guy that? He said, I don't know. He just cured me. And they said, have you been blind from birth? And he said, yeah. So they didn't believe him. They had to talk to the parents and get an affidavit from them. And still, they were so reluctant to see this man as having been healed. And so they sent him away, and then they brought him back the second time and said, didn't you know that this man was a sinner? And the blind man said, or the man who recovered his sight said, one thing I know, I was blind, but now I see. And this man did a good thing, no matter how you try to make it bad. And they get upset because he was trying to teach them. But here is a story that Jesus is telling about giving sight to a man. It wasn't because of the man's faith. It wasn't because of him requesting it. Jesus just did it. And in that, there is a message. And that message is that God gives us sight. Jesus came into the world, was confronted by those people that believed in the Old Testament, and they were reluctant to believe anything else. They were reluctant to understand how God could be different in their lives at this time. And I think Jesus is saying to us today, we have to be careful, because we can be blinded to the truth of God. This man that was healed, said, I was blind, and now I see. That's the reality. And so, we need to face and understand the realities of God in our world today, because we don't always see clearly. It's like, have you ever driven in really bad fog? You know what it's like to drive in fog that's really thick? I don't know about you, but what I do is I try to find somebody that's driving ahead of me. I see their taillights and I follow them because it's a lot easier then. Well, the story is told of a man who did this. Really bad fog, you can only see a foot or so in front of you. And he was driving down the road and he saw two red lights in front of him and the taillights of another car, so he began to follow them. And he followed it, he zigged when it zigged, and he zagged when it zagged, and all of a sudden, he ran into it. He got out of the car, and he began complaining to the man in front of him. He said, why did you stop so abruptly? Why didn't you signal me? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And the other guy said, well, in my own driveway? He may have followed him a little too closely and not paid enough attention. There are times in our lives when we follow a vision, an understanding, a way. And that may not always take us where we want to go. It may take us to a place that is not the best place to be. This week I was meeting with the Moravian ministers from the Penmar district, and who were talking about things in general, and then as the conversation always goes, we began to talk about church attendance and how things are going. And this is a tough time for churches. Most of the churches in this Penmar region are suffering. Their attendance is bad. Lancaster has about 60 in attendance. The two churches in York, not too much better, and the church in Lebanon, the same way. And why is this happening? Or what's going on? And the tendency is to, well, let's get back to the way things used to be. And let's do the things the way we used to do them so that we can get back the glory that used to be ours. And you know what? It doesn't work anywhere. It's like following those lights and we bump into it after a while. We have to be able to look in a new way. Maybe in a different thing. Now I have a test for you today. Okay, and I'm going to pass this. Well, I'm just going to hold. You can look at this in the crowd. You can pass that around. Okay, it's this way, by the way. Okay, don't put it upside down. It makes it a lot harder. Just take a look at that. What do you see? A woman? How many people see a woman? Old or young? Young. How many see a young woman? Everybody see a young woman? Everybody see an old woman? Whoa, wait a minute. Well, let's ask this question. How many see an old woman? Okay. How many see a young woman? Whoa, okay. Now what's going on here? Is there an old woman in this picture, or is there a young woman in this picture? Both. How can it be both? Okay. And also, the view of the paper, and it also has your frame of reference in it. Now, if I take some of the clues away, what do you see? An old woman. And if I take some of the other clues away, you see a younger girl. Okay. When you put them together, you see both. Well, this truth, younger, older, both, is an important way to understand our God and where we are. There are some people who are so into one of those pictures that they can't see the other. I have to tell you, I am ashamed to be a Christian with the events that happened this past week with the burning of the Quran by a minister in Florida, sparking the death of many people. Now, here is a man, I don't know him from Adam, but he believes so strongly in one of those pictures that he can't believe anything else. And he has to fight and cause hatred, death, because of that. I think that misses the point. Jesus, with the man who is blind, is trying to teach us a lesson. He's not saying that the law and the prophets are bad or wrong. He's saying that God is bigger than that. That somehow God has more to offer than that. He's not doing away with it. It's both for him. Jesus brings us a message that goes beyond the Sabbath laws of the day and the rigidness of the Pharisees. He brings us a love that changes us. And it's a love that we have to know and understand. Our frame of reference, our mindset, what we have known and what we have seen and what we've understood all of our lives seem to be at risk and in jeopardy in our world today. And we fight against that. But there must be some openness to the living God in our world today. What is Jesus saying to us today? The religious leaders of Jesus' day did not accept what he had to bring. We cannot be blind to that today. What did Jesus bring to us? Not just the memories that we have and the understandings that we've had for all of our lives, but he's brought us a spirit that's with us each step. And we must be open to that spirit. We must see the both and somehow understand that God is bigger than all of us. And we need somehow to lay hold of that truth that changes our lives. Jesus came into this world to give us sight, to give us understanding, to bring us a message of the love of God that wasn't new. It's throughout the Old Testament. But it's understood in a new way and lived in a new way. We are called to love each other the best we can. We can't do it perfectly. We have to love ourselves. And in that, there must be a vision of what God wants of us. How God wants us to live. How God wants us to love and to care. And this must be our God. The Spirit of the truth of God. That God was in Jesus Christ. And that God is still in Jesus Christ in our world today. To lead us. To give us sight to follow. Be open to that. See,